We'll pick up with the Share the Road supplement to the Wisconsin Motorist's Handbook with the motto that it uses: don't be driven to distraction. There are 3 ways that we can become distracted while driving: taking your eyes off the road, taking your hands off the wheel, or taking your mind off what you're doing. That can mean using a cell phone, texting, eating, checking a map, applying makeup, setting or reading your navigation system, tuning your radio, or even talking with passengers. Whenever your focus isn't on the road, you put yourself and all other road users in danger. The NHTSA provides the following estimate. If drivers react a half-second slower because of distractions, crashes double. In the Share the Road supplement, they express it like this: not everything in your life is under your control, but driving is. When you're behind the wheel, you control your fate. That's why when you're driving, your one and only focus should be on driving. Did you know that traffic crashes are often caused by the way we drive? That means most crashes are totally avoidable. Devote your complete and undivided attention to driving. Don't get distracted. Driving is a full-time job requiring your full-time attention. When you're behind the wheel, your responsibility is safety. To yourself, to your passengers, to motorists and others around you. Don't let yourself be distracted by anything that takes your attention from the driving task. The supplement came up with a series of distractions to avoid while driving, calling it What You Need to Know. That's N-O, know, about driving to distraction. This list is from the 2010 Driver's Handbook. Interesting that it doesn't even mention talking or texting on a cell phone. This is the era of distracted driving. Remember at the start of this class, I mentioned how seatbelt laws introduced in the 1970s and mandatory defensive driving classes starting in 1990s resulted in a large decline in crashes, despite increases in miles driven. That started to change somewhere between 2010 and 2012. After years of steady decline, numbers of both crashes and traffic fatalities began to rise again. The reason? Distracted driving, especially talking or texting on a cell phone. NHTSA estimates that 15% of injury crashes and 9% of fatal crashes resulted from distracted driving, with this type of fatal crash increasing by 8% from 2014 to 2015 alone. You may have heard that talking on a cell phone while driving is as dangerous as drinking and driving. That's false, but it is not safe. To compare the two, you're 10 times as likely to have a vehicle crash if you drive while intoxicated. You're 4 times as likely to have a vehicle crash if you drive while talking on a cell phone compared to drivers who are not. So it's not as risky as drunk driving, but it still multiplies the risks of driving several times over. Don't do it. By the way, a hands-free device also interferes with driving. Handheld cell phones are worse, but hands-free devices are not risk-free. As a general rule, before making or taking a call, pull safely off the road. If you can't, keep the conversation short or have a passenger take or make the call for you. Never text while driving. According to the NHTSA, that's the most dangerous thing you can do while driving. Worse even than driving while intoxicated. It's also against the law in Wisconsin. As the Share the Road supplement sums it up, when you're behind the wheel, your number one responsibility is driving. Period. We'll finish our discussion of the supplement with the importance of approaching driving with the right attitude. As the supplement puts it, make a difference in keeping the road safe for everyone. Act responsibly, which means putting safety first and being responsible not only for protecting yourself, but for the safety of your passengers, other motorists, bikers, and pedestrians. Don't turn your car into a deadly weapon. I've pointed out several times that driver behavior is what leads to a crash far more than any other cause. Behavior involves your actions, for sure, but it also means your attitude. How you approach driving will determine how you behave. The supplement describes it like this. The most dangerous drugs on the highway are impatience, frustration, and anger. You can't control traffic, only your reaction to it. Be courteous, even if the other driver isn't. Don't take traffic problems personally. Don't tailgate or block the passing lane. Don't make obscene gestures, and keep your cool. My favorite line from that advice is, you can't control traffic, only your reaction to it. Let's face it, driving can be stressful. Driving in unfamiliar settings or circumstances, or in poor weather, or low visibility, or when you're criticized or verbally attacked by other drivers or passengers, or when you're running late or in heavy traffic. It's even worse when other vehicles get too close, or when you're driving faster than conditions permit, which means you have to react more quickly to everything. Basically, whenever your driving feels somewhat out of your control, it's highly stressful. The thing is that stress isn't only in our minds. Our bodies respond to stress by releasing the stress hormones of cortisol, adrenaline, and noradrenaline. They have a similar effect as steroids and bring on what's called the fight or flight response, which means being more aggressive, more impulsive, and less apt to think before we act. While all these physical responses might make for a good survival strategy in the jungle, they make for poor driver. What's interesting is how similar stress and anger are. It turns out the same hormones are released when we're stressed or angry. Just think about the last time you felt angry when driving. Were you under stress at the time? Remember when we listed what makes driving stressful, two of the biggest stressors are being criticized or verbally attacked by others, and driving fast or aggressively, which means you're forced to react more quickly to everything. At its worst, this cycle can result in road rage, where a person, or maybe even more than one person, becomes so intent on expressing anger and aggression that they ignore their own safety. If you respond to anger with anger, it can quickly spiral out of control and lead to violence. So what should you do when you encounter an aggressive or angry driver? The first thing to do is be extra courteous. I know that doesn't sound very easy. For many of us, our first reaction to an aggressive driver is to become more aggressive ourselves. But all that does is amplify the risk. One way to think of it is that you need to be courteous enough for the two of you. The other way to think about it is that it's a courtesy contest, and the way to win is to show more courtesy. Showing more courtesy than the other driver is your victory, not your defeat. Many of the same techniques can be used with a distracted driver, except that you may be able to get the driver's attention if you do it in a courteous way. If the driver remains distracted even when you try to get their attention, treat their vehicle as you would an aggressive driver. If you observe aggressive, angry, or distracted behaviors in other drivers, you can best deal with it by doing the following. Give that driver more room than normal. Increase following distance. Change lanes or change your route to avoid the driver. And be particularly careful when passing a driver you think may be distracted or angry. Above all, be courteous if you want to get the attention of a distracted, distressed, or angry driver. If a courteous interaction helps, you may pursue it. but it's best to focus on your own safety and the safety of other drivers as much as you can, and not on the attitude that other drivers display. Your attitude is under your control. Theirs is not. Above all, don't engage, enrage, or do anything to take your own focus away from driving. The Share the Road supplement concludes with the advice that the best way to stay alive is to keep under the speed limit. Don't drink and drive, and always wear your seatbelt. Each and every time. And insist that everyone else in the car is buckled up too. No exceptions. Remember that the supplement described the most dangerous drugs when driving as impatience, frustration, and anger. They also list the most potent medicines as buckle up, slow down, and drive sober. That finishes this lesson. After a brief question, we'll finish up the class with a discussion on how to resolve right-of-way conflicts.